Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next session in the Global Ready Conference 2025. The topic for today, for this session, is AI in translation, separating fact from fiction. My name is Adam Noonan. I am a Principal Customer Success Manager here at Smartling. I've been with Smartling just over 5 years, in customer success for a little under 10. And I've got to work with some of our biggest customers as they implement, adapt, and develop their AI solutions via Smartling. And with me to discuss this exciting topic today is Ryan Evans from Sprout Social, who I will pass over to now and allow him to introduce himself.
Hi, so my name's Ryan Evans, Director of Revenue Marketing Program Management at Sprout Social. Sprout is a social media management and analytics platform and tool. We work with about 30,000 brands across the world. We've been with SmartLink for a while, or quite a while, several years now. We have our website and product translated into like 4 to 5 different languages, and we even have an employee advocacy product. Used by some international brands. We had translated into 13 languages. So it's been great to work with SmartLink for several years now.
Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate you joining us for this session. So we've got a couple of kind of questions slash myths that we're going to dig into today to try and separate the AI fact from fiction. And I think as a starting point, we'll do well to kind of define what we're talking about here, because there are many claims about how and where the translation process can be impacted by AI. And we want to kind of divide it into maybe two rough areas. The first would be generative AI, so that's producing content in either English or in your target languages. And then underneath that, AI features that enhance the current process that you already have. So with that in line, Ryan, I was interested to know, with regards to Sprout Social, what have you or where have you deployed and adapted AI within your localization process?
Yeah, so we ended up looking at where we could use AI. We look carefully at what we want to translate. There's some content on our website, obviously on the product, that's really important to us. Those terms we need to have translated exactly the same way. We need that context to be really, really clear. And in those, we wanted to have manual translation through SmartLang and continue that process. We also looked at other categories of content that's more industry based. So we like to serve the industry and help share more about social media management in general. And that is a lot easier for us to consider for AI translation because the AI is going to understand the industry, it's going to understand the business context, and we're not going to have those branded terms that are going to be as critical to get right so that we don't cause any confusion for our customers. So we ended up splitting up our content into things that are sort of mission critical, must be human translated, and then things that map really well to the industry, that even content that we wanted to share more of that we weren't able to, we can now start to get that translated using AI.
Hmm. So would you say it's fair to say that you've adopted I suppose, a multi-layered AI adoption strategy, as in not one size fits all, you want to be really specific about where and where you do not apply it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we work closely with our like security and legal team and kind of look at the risk, even to the brand, the risk to our brand and looking at it that way. And you're right. Like, I don't think you can just slap AI on top of everything and expect it to get an amazing output. You can work with it and it'll continue to grow and grow and get better. But you do have to look at where do you want to use AI and where do you want to keep that hands-on approach.
Yeah, I think like what I'm hearing from you there is it's kind of important to, I suppose, consider guardrails as you apply this strategy, because we can
Yeah,
see that some.
definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So some output from AI, particularly I think the ones that a lot of people are going to be familiar with is ChatGPT and other such models that produces pretty impressive, particularly with regards to English text. But can you tell me, I suppose, what in terms of the smartling features that you leverage with regards to AI, what have you found to be beneficial?
Yeah, and going off of the Chat GPT example or like a regular LLM, when you first start testing them, you put in some information and you get some information back and like, wow, that was fast and it's amazing. But if you look at like I'm trying to write an email, an executive email, I don't know that that's exactly what I'm gonna share. So you do have to be really hands-on with it. Not just because it's fast doesn't mean it's accurate, right? So you have to make sure this, like, is this my voice? Is this my tone? Is this how I want to speak? Some of the things that we leverage with Smartling that we really appreciate is that Smartling has our glossary. So we've been working, like I said, with Smartling for years. So you're able to leverage our glossary, help bring consistency to our brand terms. And that's a huge step up over going just to a general LLM and dropping in an article at a time or web page at a time, because we're not going to have that just like years of built up context that we have with SmartLink.
Yeah, no, I hear the same from the customers that I work with, that particularly from that glossary insertion feature that allows
Yeah,
to maintain that brand and tone of voice is really, really crucial and gives them a lot of confidence when putting more content through AI. So no,
that was
it's yeah,
that was
I've heard
critical for us.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, super. So now over the next couple of questions, one, we do want to do a little bit of myth busting. So
Yeah.
the first myth that we have is AI production is as good as humans. So why not just translate with a chatbot or other ready to use LLMs? So we'll dig into that a bit, and a couple of comments from myself. I think of the top line is to say is output as good as human translation and edit the traditional translation method? No, not by itself, certainly not yet. We still have hallucinations are still possible. As you mentioned, the tone could be different. You could be looking for something formal and it could produce something informal. So people are still somewhat unconvinced that LLMs can capture the consistency of the preferred tone of voice or formality. Another consideration is that LLMs that are off the shelf, say for somebody who's considering replacing their entire localization operation with say an output bot, is these are not geared towards localization. That is not what their designs have in mind. And it's something that you need to think about further down the line. Are the owners or the operators of these LLMs going to put in the same effort as a specialized translation company that's looking to leverage AI and develop it better? So, from your experience, what is, say, the types of content that you are confident in putting through AI, and then what are the ones that you still want to keep back?
Yeah, so when we looked at it, some obvious ones that we're not going to run through AI is we're not going to run our legal text through AI. We want hands-on in there. We like that SmartLink has a legal focused team that can help us specialize in that, and that was really important to us. We're not going to put our main high traffic pages through AI currently. I think we can consider that down the road, but right now we don't want to do that because we want to make sure we're able to edit those quickly. We want the tone to come through really clear. And we wanted to make sure, even string by string, that the things on the web page are able to be edited very carefully and reviewed by a human. Where we are able to use AI is in longer form content where the context is in the article. So the start to finish of the article is the context. The AI is going to be able to infer that a lot better instead of just taking a single string, or especially like a tagline or a call to action, or something like that would be a lot riskier to just run through an AI and hope it fits with just a few words. But where the whole article is the context, or where we start to see, start to finish, that the information is going to make a lot of sense. And especially, like I said, when it's that industry content. So if we're talking about something that's general in the industry, we want to educate the industry, educate social marketing practitioners and executives, that type of content in translated form, we'd be okay with using AI because the industry is is going to be general content that'll be easy for the AI to understand and infer and kind of see all the way through without a risk of maybe misstating our brand or misstating our product capabilities and that type of stuff.
And so then on that, so with that more generic industry content, like how, I suppose you're using it now, AI translations for it, but how has that changed your strategy around the output of this kind of generic industry content to position Sprout Social as a thought leader?
Yeah, and I'll say not quite like generic content, but it's very focused on what we want to share with our industry, and it's important to us, and it's really important to us, and that's why we're even cautious. Do we even use AI for this? And there's a big debate, internally, because we wanted to say, should we translate this with human? Because it's a really important bit of materials for us. But what we found is that there's programs that we really wanted to do that had a large landscape on the website. And so our options were either do it, like don't do it at all, do it in
Hmm.
English only, or do it in English and have it translated by AI. And it was cost prohibitive previously to have it human translated, but it was an amazing bit of content that we wanted to share. So as AI continued to grow and we could work with SmartLink, that enabled us to actually move forward with projects that we had to either say no to or keep English only. Now we can expand that to an international audience. So that was a big unlock and win for us. There's things that we knew we wanted to do, but we just kind of cost prohibitive previously.
Yeah, I think that it's your again, you're not the first person who's said this to me, that it really opens up bandwidth, particularly for teams that are maybe again the size of Sprout Social, but for smaller teams as well. They found it really, really useful that it really empowers them to produce more and add more to the business as well. So no, moving on to our next myth is AI is going to reduce the need for humans in the translation process. So again, I think we've heard this in not in, with regards to AI, but this has often been said about new technologies that are produced. But I would think I would urge caution when adopting this point of view. I've always, as I've experienced our customers developing AI, working with their either smartly language services or their language service provider, it's really been seen as an enhancement as opposed to a replacement for individuals that work within localization. But again, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's going to be to completely overhaul that in 10 years we won't have teams of linguists, or is that a little bit overshooting it?
It's so hard to say where we are 10 years from now. I hope not. The way we see it right now is that AI is actually just enabling us to do more. Like they're kind of going back to the last example, but there are things that we want to be able to do that we've had to say no to. It is such a productivity boost. It's such a good brainstorm assistant. It's such a good guide. And even in this example, we were able then to bring more content to SmartLink, right? We still have our core content. We're translating with human translation, and that would have been it. That would have been the sort of the whole view of the website we'd bring to SmartLink. With AI, we're actually able to do more, so expand. So we're able to offer more content to our customers, to our users, the people that are trying to learn about social media management. And in our relationship with SmartLink, that comes kind of your way. We're able to translate that, get that to more people internationally. Hopefully that's good for business. And hopefully this kind of becomes this cycle. So I do think the whole formula changes, but it opens up the chance to do larger, bigger, hopefully more effective and more customer focused content than we were able to do in the past. And that should kind of like grow everything, right? And that's a way to grow everything. And hopefully the linguists get a boost too. They have AI to help where they need, and then they're hands-on and getting fast scans and all sorts of amazing things I'm sure you're already doing over there that I don't get to see. But I hope that AI is a boost across the board for everybody that just enables us to really like bring more joy to our work, where we're really working on the hard problems and the fun things and getting after those things
Mm.
we want to get after.
Yeah, no, it can remove a lot of the I suppose the repetitive work of particularly from linguists as well. Then on the flip side of that, where you've talked about where AI has allowed you to expand, has there been any content type that you have trialed this with where you were, say, not as happy with the results and you said, well, we may need to wait a while before we roll out AI into this particular content type?
We haven't had anything. No, we haven't had anything like that. If anything, I think we've just kind of been cautiously stepping into it and pleasantly surprised. Like, hey, this is working really well. We have a glossary of social media content that continues to grow and grow and grow. This is a very large artifact that we have that, again, it's kind of getting cost prohibitive to keep going. So the question is, do we keep this? Do we pull it back to English only? Or what can we do?
Mm.
So then the AI translation was a really good fit there. That was a really easy place for us to want to start too, because again, these are general terms, they're not brand specific, and the AI is going to kind of understand the overall industry and what's going on. So it's general information that's pretty easy to share, and it's nice to have that all in one place, and it's nice to have that translated. That went very well. We were able to move it into another campaign. We're working with our influencer marketing product. We built a directory of influencer marketers across I think nearly 300 categories of influencers, which again, this is so cool to be able to highlight this. And people are into automobiles and cooking, and there's 298 others. Like there's like 300 different things and categories you could look at. It was an amazing program that we just had to have on the shelf for a while that we knew we wanted to build. And we've finally got a few unlocks. It's like, hey, we can actually go after this now. We're highlighting what people are doing in the industry. We're highlighting what some of the best creators are across these different areas. We're highlighting what Sprout can offer with influencer marketing. It's just such a powerful program to put together that it's sad it had to sit as long as it did, and it's amazing that we can move forward with that now.
Yeah, and then I suppose big picture from that, because you talk about unlocking all your content, like really increasing the size of your content network, for want of a better term, significantly. What's been the I suppose, the impact on Sprout Social overall as a result of this? What do other teams, colleagues, management, what are their takes on what you've been able to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously we're watching the results. The results come back very positive. So we keep doing that. If anything, it is sort of like this backlog of things that we know we want to do. We move it forward, like, wow, that worked. Okay, what's next? Like, what's that other idea you have? Like, what's the next expansion of this? Instead of having to maybe weigh cost and weigh, too much of the business case and maybe hold it back, it's more of, oh, look, there's like that flywheel effect. This is working. This is good. What do we got next? Let's keep going on this. So if anything, it encourages us to, and I think that's the unlock I like with AI is again, not like taking away from humans, but actually these are things we're so excited to do. We get to start doing them. And that should actually make people happier and more excited to go to work of, you'd rather hear yes than hear no when you have a project you care about. So if AI can be the tool that can help you to get that done and share it internationally, that's amazing. So that if anything, we get to kind of go back to the broaden the brainstorming and say, hey, this worked. What do we want to do next to keep this going? Because this is looking really good.
Yeah, the success of one initiative seems to open up the opportunities to pursue more. And you're right there with regards to human translators, is that what I've seen from Smartling's AI solutions and features, it just increases their capacity. It doesn't take away work, but it enables them to get through more. It enables their organizations and their customers to get through more. And everybody seems to be reasonably happy with the end results.
Yeah, we're often like hands-on with the more fun stuff and kind of hands-off with the less interesting.
With a lot of, yeah, with a lot of the menial tasks. No, for sure. So on to our next question, and this is, what are some tips for implementing and experimenting with AI? So from my own personal experience working with our customers, always the kind of first step for me has been to evaluate and compare different translation methods whenever you're going to introduce a new one. So we've all experienced with human translation, with machine translation post edit. So adopted customers that have adopted AI and working with myself, they've always looked to run some kind of test to be able to see actually where the results are and compare across. Similarly, like using a quality score like a MQM, a multi-dimensional quality metric, has been a method that they've employed to gauge the different qualities in output. But for yourself, again, when you want to experiment or when you want to implement it somewhere, what have you done before you get into full production? What are the steps that you've taken before?
Yeah, and there's a couple of things we did at Sprout that really helped, I think, set the foundation for this. One of the first things that we did at a company level is start an AI steering committee. So we brought in security, legal, exec um, view and oversight and made sure that we were clear on what we were going to do inside of AI. It's clearly emerging, right? And it's going to continue to move quickly. So we wanted to have a small group that could move quickly on looking at it and defining our policy and defining how we're going to approach it and how we're going to encourage people to use it. And that has been able to help things continue to move really quickly. It helped us to define our risk tolerance, right? Like where is AI an acceptable risk and where do we need to stay away from it? And that changes as AI gets healthier, right? And and we stayed cautious early, and we want to make sure we're not just jumping on the bandwagon of something like really shiny, but really making sure it works well for our use cases. So we had that team together to help. We also had a group inside of our marketing team brought together a few AI enthusiasts that were willing to test and try things out and share what's working, share what's not. And that team knew, hey, we might have access to something, lose access to something, we might try something, you might start using it, and then it's not going to work. But we gave a space to experiment and gave a space to bring ideas and encourage each other with what we were finding. So all of that together really helped set us up to feel comfortable using AI and feel comfortable sharing it. I think at first, when everybody first uses AI, you kind of feel like you're cheating. Like, do I have to tell my boss that I wrote this awesome summary through AI? But once you get people guidance and learnings and coaching on how to use it well, you don't just pump it in, pump it out, and drop it over. Of course, your boss is going to call you out on that because it's not going to look good. It's not your voice. But getting help with it and with the stuff you're working on is encouraged, especially because we had that steering committee. We have our policy and the acceptable risk and where we can use AI, where we can't, and a good focus on where we can't, right? And even like I said earlier, looking at the content we have, looking at who is the audience for that content, what's the intent. If it's a buying intent, we're probably going to do that with human translation. If it's a learning intent and a growing intent and an understanding, then that's a better use case for an AI translation there.
Yeah, I think that that steering committee you mentioned is a great model to follow because it really is, AI is not just for localization, it's for the entire organization. There's loads of places where it can be applied. And I think it's what the other thing you mentioned where I think it's really, really important is that you have well-defined goals of what you're trying to achieve. Because you're right, there's teams all over, not just in localization, are getting pressure from their bosses, and I'm sure their bosses are getting pressure from their bosses to implement and to leverage AI. But to just rush headfirst into it, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. And then also, if you're just so cautious and say, I'm going to wait till it's perfect, I'm not going to use it, you're going to fall behind. So you have to find that middle ground to like push and use it, but at a way that doesn't put your brand or company at risk and that you know what you're getting into when you're using it.
Mm. No, absolutely. All right. So the last topic that I wanted to ask you about was, and again, I think this will be relevant for most people who are watching, are best practices for speaking with leadership about AI. Because again, there is, I suppose, it still persists now that there is another myth, if you want, that AI can be a silver bullet to the problems that you have, that we just need to flip a switch and then everything all the challenges that we're facing will become easier or will vanish. Similarly, you might get a request from higher up that says just use AI, where again, just the knowledge of what is and is impossible is not there. So, what, in your experience, maybe through that steering committee, speaking with leadership about what's achievable, what's not, what's your experience been like?
Yeah, and we know AI is amazing, right? We know you get this amazing content, and I think it can kind of lean towards, it's kind of like a brand new employee that's just really fast at making content and whatever you ask them to do, they do it really quick. The instinct could be like, well, let's just give them everything. But that you kind of have to think with AI specifically in that scenario, there's just more context needed in some places. So there you wouldn't want to give your most complicated content to somebody brand new that doesn't have context of your company and how you're speaking and what you want to do. And I think AI is very similar. And AI is going to continue to get stronger and stronger, and you can guide it, you can add knowledge into it. So it will continue to grow, but it's not something you can just throw a problem at and then expect it to nail it every single time. So you do have to bring in, back to your question of getting pressure from executive to use AI. I think you just want to put in a dose of caution and say, absolutely, AI could be a good fit here. What is our test plan? How are we going to verify it? What outcomes are we happy with? What risk are we willing to take on to try this? And then setting expectations on timing too. I frequently jump into AI thinking I'll work on a prompt or work on, some content, then it's going to be easy. And it's significantly easier than if I just did that task by hand. But
Mm.
it is not a just walk in, walk out in 5 minutes frequently. It's fun and I love it. And often you can kind of build something that you can reuse over and over. Like, hey, now that's a solved problem. Now, next time that comes up, I have a great approach or solution to it. That's been fun to see across our entire marketing team, people building more and more prompts and approaches. So using AI to contain problems like, yeah, now we can continue to use that. And now we know how to apply that same skill set to this other problem and seeing that expand. But I think just each time you're trying something new, you want to test carefully, make clear what your outcomes are, what you're aiming for. Give yourself enough time to figure it out, but know that it's also worth it. If you solve this, think of how much time you're going to save. It'd be better to solve it well once up front than to sort of half solve it and have bad content going out.
Yeah, so I think it's clearly defined metrics, achievable objectives, and then the old adage is always knocking around, under promise, over deliver. Yeah, when discussing with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Um, Ryan, thanks a million for your time. I really, really appreciate your insight. It's great to get a look at what Sprout Social is doing with adapting and developing their AI approach to translation. Thank you very much again for joining us on this session. We'll draw this to a close now. There will be a short break before the next one. So please, everybody, talk amongst yourselves before that starts. But from myself and from Ryan, thank you very much, and we'll see you again next year.
All right. Thank you, Adam.